Hey, everybody. We're live. How's it going, live streamers? The Ben Joravsky Show for your Thursday, March 21st, is moments away. But before we go any further here, we have to remind you that the Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by unions. Quite a few of them, actually. So before we do anything else, we'd like to thank the following unions for making this show possible. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith, Local 126, and District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Thank you once again to those unions for jumping on board with us. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky Show. Well, let me turn this music down. The Ben Joravsky Show will begin. Oh, gotta wait for my sound effect here. All right, Ben Joravsky Show starts now. Let's go. Yes, it is Thursday, March 21st, and live from the Chicago Reader's Sun-Times studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, we're talking Lollapalooza and politics. That's right, Lollapalooza. With the Chicago Reader's Leor Galil, Jake Lewis of the Chicago Federation of Labor will join us. And we welcome the 10th Ward Alderwoman, Sue Sadlowski Garza. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Split State Thursday. And here's why. So for the last few weeks, we've been utterly obsessed with the Chicago political showdown, a.k.a. Tony Preckwinkle versus Lori Lightfoot, 12-round heavyweight bout. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, we're talking about that mayoral race. It's so overwhelming, we've almost forgotten that the rest of the state exists. We're talking about the state of Illinois, you know, that state, the one we live in, the one we were utterly obsessively talking about 6 months ago, D, when it was Pritzker versus Rauner in the 12-round heavyweight showdown.
Oh, those radio days.
Ah, yes, radio days. Anyway, that was a long time ago in many ways, but all but forgotten that state. Yeah. I forgot that state even exists. I've been so obsessed with Chicago politics, with the mayor's race. But, you know, I got a reminder in today's bright one, my beloved bright one, the Chicago Sun-Times, home delivered as always.
Show those listeners that newspaper.
There it is, folks. Come on, a real newspaper. Anyway, newspaper arrived today, and there was a story on page 2 by Tina Svandelis, Bulldog political reporter for the Sun-Times, entitled Illinois' Great Divide. Talks about a poll by the Paul Simon Institute that shows, are you ready for this? J.B. Pritzker, our newly elected Democratic governor, is almost as unpopular in the state as one President Donald John Trump.
I'm not a perfect person.
Yeah, that J.B. Pritzker. No collusion. Anyway, Pritzker's almost as unpopular as Donald Trump. Let's just think about this, folks. J.B. Pritzker, that's the guy who signed the law that would raise the minimum wage in the state of Illinois, giving the working poor a little more money, is almost as unpopular in the state as the President of the United States, who last year pushed through a tax break for the richest of the rich. So he made the richest of the rich even poorer. So the guy who helped the poorest of the working poor is as unpopular in the state as the guy who helps the richest of the rich. Wow, man, we are a weird people. All right, we're going to take a little deeper dive, and we'll see that a lot of this breaks down geographically. For instance, downstate, where the doctor hails from.
You better believe it.
The almighty 618. Hey, everybody, I'm from the 618.
Oh, that's a great impression of me. Been working on that, huh?
Yeah, that's my doctor impression. Anyway, all right, from the 618, let's see. Downstate, Trump's approval-disapproval rating was 50% approve, 46% disapproved, all right? So more people approve of the Donald downstate than disapprove of him. So he's doing pretty well in the downstate.
Sounds about right.
If they could just cut the downstate off from the rest of the state, Donald Trump would win Illinois. What was that dude who said we should divide the state into three?
Robert Marshall.
Yeah, we had him on the show, remember?
All right, so now, okay, I'm glad you came here for the meeting, everybody. All right, I got this plan. Thanks for coming, everybody. What we're going to do here is we're going to take Illinois and divide it into three. Wait, where's everybody going? Where are you going?
I kind of liked Marshall. He was running.
He was cool.
He was running for governor. He had the map. He wasn't quite sure about the specifics. Well, just general specifics. You know, the idea of.
Oh, you divided into three, guys. Wait, where are you going? This is genius.
Anyway, so all right. So Trump's more popular downstate. Meanwhile, upstate, or whatever we call the Chicago area, Pritzker's strongest numbers were, unsurprisingly, according to Tina Svandelos' story, in Chicago, where 50% approved of his performance and 28% disapproved. It's so weird, man, that the guy who gave the poorest of the poor, the billionaire governor who gave the poorest of the poor a raise, is about as popular in the state as the billionaire president who gave the richest of the rich a raise. You know, and these are the same people in the state of Illinois, downstate and upstate, who over the last few years on non-binding referendums have approved the idea of raising the minimum wage and slapping a tax on the wealthy so he can fund government programs. Okay, so Pritzker's got a plan I can't even talk. Pritzker has a plan like that right now that would raise taxes on the wealthiest of the wealthy, and he's still unpopular throughout the state of. He's giving people what they want, and they still don't like him.
I'm not a perfect person.
Yeah, man, that could be the voters of Illinois talking. All right. Now, by the way, I just got to say this. It's only been, 2 months since Pritzker's been in office? 2 months? He's been in office for 2 months? Already, according to this poll, 70% of Republicans don't like the job he's doing. So, folks, whatever happened to the idea of a honeymoon? You know, like you give a guy a chance? I mean,
that's over.
Yeah, that's over. I gave Mayor Rahm a longer honeymoon than most of the Republican voters in the state of Illinois have given Pritzker. I gave Mayor Rahm, hold on, D, I'm going to do it. Before I criticized him, 2011, he was sworn in May, so made it June. I gave him a 3 months honeymoon.
Oh, wow, did you go to the Daniel Biss Mathematic Academy?
I had to do that. Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I want to tell you something, D. I went to Evanston High School, and I studied algebra there, okay? I know my mathematics, all right? I also took geometry while we're at this subject. Anyway, face it, folks, we live in a separate world. We live in a divided world. You know, the one side is Trump, the other side is Democrat, and you just are not going to bring those two sides together after, after all 2 years of Donald Trump? You know, like yesterday, for instance, I had on the show Alderman Nick Sposato from the 38th Ward, who is a Democrat, but he is a Democrat who actually voted for Donald John Trump, and he was explaining himself on the show yesterday. Man, you should hear the howls of protest from my lefty friend. Why are you putting Sposato on? Why are you letting a Trump voter on? You know, like we're just supposed to pretend they don't exist. Look, Dems, you want to beat Donald Trump? Well, how are you going to beat Donald Trump if you don't even listen to some folks from the other side of the political spectrum. We got a great show today, everybody. Leor Galil, yes, indeed. Leor Galil from The Reader. We're going to be talking about Lollapalooza and politics. All right, Lollapalooza and politics. Lollapalooza's schedule just came out last week, or excuse me, just came out yesterday. So he's going to be breaking down all the bands.
And you know every single band playing, correct?
Actually, I know more than I realized. There's a great number of them I do not know. That is correct. Miles, the editor, is here to help me through this.
I remember last year you were just raving about the Arctic Monkeys.
That is such that is so not true, everybody. Did I even know who the Arctic Monkeys were?
Yeah, of course. You're being coy again.
All right, I do have the Arctic Monkey tattoo. Yeah, I have to admit that. Anyway, Leor, we'll be breaking. We'll also be talking about what's going on in the 40th Ward, where Andre Vasquez is running for alderman. Everything's political, folks. Andre Vasquez, a rapper back in the day, is now running for alderman against Patrick O'Connor, who is one of Mayor Rahm's closest allies. And O'Connor is hammering Vasquez with flyers that repeat lyrics from his controversial rapping days. So we'll get Leor's thoughts on that. Rappers running for alderman. Sue Sadlowski Garza, one of my favorite politicians in the whole world, the pride and joy of the 10th Ward, will be in here from the southeast side. See what she has to say about the political wheelings and dealings going on in our state. And Jake Lewis, the man, the myth, the legend from the Chicago Federation of Labor. He's always ready to talk politics. So we have a lot of political discussion ahead of us, mixed in with a little music and rap. Yo. But before we do any of that.
He's hip, guys. He's hip. Watch out.
Oh, man.
I can just see the younger audience coming in, baby. All those downloads.
Man, talk about Chance the Rapper. I just did that, man. Our numbers are off the charts. Anyway, before we do any of that, the doctor with the news.
All right, everybody, it's the middle of the day, and coming up, we're going to unpack last night's Chicago mayoral debate. But first, let's find out what's happening nationally in the national news this afternoon. Yeah, Donald Trump pulled a 180 on us this morning, people, as Robert Mueller's Russian collusion investigation draws to a close, and after a CNN poll showing that 87% of the public agree, President Trump is now saying that the details in Mueller's Russian investigation should be made to the public.
I don't mind. I mean, frankly, I told the House, if you want, let them see it. Again, I say, a deputy, because of the fact that the Attorney General didn't have the courage to do it himself, a deputy that's appointed appoints another man to write a report. I just won an election with 63 million votes or so, 63 million. I had 206 to 223 in the Electoral College, 306 to 223. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, I just won one of the greatest elections of all time in the history of this country, and even you will admit that. And now I have somebody writing a report that never got a vote?
The White House cleaning staff, always vacuuming.
All right, you know that Donald Trump, we love this bit. He loves to meet the press as he's standing. What is it, an airplane or a helicopter?
Air Force One.
Yeah, it's Air Force One. So they get the engines going up, so nobody can really get a question in. So all you have is Donald Trump bellowing out whatever his message of the day is. Can't hear the question. Sorry. Oh, my God. He's a funny guy, that Donald Trump. The Attorney General, of course, he's alluding to is Jeff Sessions, who had to recuse himself on the investigation of potential collusion by the Russians with the Trump campaign into the stealing of emails from the Democratic computer. Let's not forget that there was a crime committed. They snuck into those computers and took their emails, folks. How would you feel if someone did that to you? So he had to recuse himself from that one. Trump's outraged that he would do that. Well, you know, he's just supposed to bury the evidence, and well, I guess that's what Trump wants him to do. So here we are. The Mueller report's about to come out, and as we see, Tina Sfondelis' story about Illinois' Great Divide. I don't know, D, if you'll ever persuade the heart and soul of the Republican Party that Donald Trump has done anything wrong. They're sticking with their man through thick and thin. But there's all the Democrats who are lined against him, and the almighty swing voters, the independent mind. There's some swing voters down there in Alton, aren't there, D?
Yeah, they're down there.
The 618.
Absolutely.
Our good friend Bob Dibert always told us, don't overlook downstate voters, all right? Don't overlook them. And so, yeah, we got to see the truth, folks. You want to bury your head in the sand? or do you want to know the truth? I'm always into knowing what the truth is. So I welcome the Mueller report, and I welcome Donald Trump welcoming the Mueller report.
Oh, wait, what's that, Donald Trump?
No collusion.
Oh, okay. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, no
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, it must be true if Donald says it.
So, yeah, that's going on. Oh, and he's still trash-talking on his employee Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, fantastic name for a country singer, by the way, George Conway.
But you got to know when to hold them. When to hold them. Sorry.
He recently called Kellyanne Conway's husband a whack job. And surprise, surprise, he went AWOL on him via Twitter, calling him a loser and a husband from hell. Now I do have Donald Trump's Twitter feed open on my browser. Just hang tight with me, audience here. Just let me switch over here, and we will read the tweet from our president. Hold tight. Hold on.
It's our president of the United States, folks. Yeah, the man you elected president of the United States of America.
Okay, we're on Donald Trump's Twitter page. All right, here we go, everybody. This is the tweet from Donald Trump. Oh, boy. All right.
George Conway, often referred to as Mr. Kellyanne Conway, by those who know him, is very, all caps, very jealous of his wife's success and angry that I, with her help, didn't give him the job he's so desperately wanted. I barely know him, but just take a look. A stone-cold loser, all caps loser, and husband from hell.
Oh, my God, husband. Imagine you're Kellyanne Conway. You got to come to work every day. Then you go home. You got George Conway. Yeah, he does sound like a. You got to know when to hold him. When to hold him. And then you come, you go to work, and you got Donald Trump bellowing about your husband, and your husband's bellowing about Trump. Oh, poor Kellyanne Conway. Almost makes me feel sorry for her. You know, all right, everybody. George, almost. Yeah, key word, almost. George Conway is a Washington lawyer, and he's a Republican, and he's a conservative, but he's been critical of Donald Trump. He represents the faction of the Republican Party, a very small faction, sort of like the John McCain wing of the Republican Party that is not afraid to occasionally criticize Donald Trump when he does something stupid and embarrassing. And unpresidential, which is pretty much something he does every single day. Boy, have the Republicans lowered the standards when it comes to the decorum of the president of the United States. At some point, D, all you have to do, you got to laugh. You know, here we have, by the way, we're going to get into this with Leor Galil. I talked about this earlier. In the 40th Ward in the city of Chicago, Patrick O'Connor, close ally, Rahm Emanuel, and Mayor Daley, their floor leader, is shocked, I tell you, that Andre Vasquez's opponent in the race was once a rapper and had misogynistic lyrics to his songs. But meanwhile, the president of the United States is waging war. Mr. P. Grabber himself, remember that? Well, in fact, I was with Miles when that story broke. I don't know if you remember. I was over at Miles' house, was his dad's house, actually.
Editor Miles?
Yeah, Editor Miles. Yes, thank you for saying
that. We had a Miles on the show yesterday.
That is true. I don't want to confuse our listeners. In 2016, remember it so well, we were watching the Cubs. It was either the World Series or the playoffs. I can't remember which one. And the story broke about Donald Trump being caught talking about grabbing women by the P word.
Oh, you were editing yourself so well today. Man.
Yes, I am. Remember that, Miles?
I remember that.
I was like, oh, my God. Miles was there. All his friends were there, and his dad, Cap, I see you, Cap. I go, guys, you won't believe what Donald Trump just did. Remember that, Miles?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and then your friends were like, wow. They went on their phones. Wow, man.
We all started looking at it on our phones.
Yeah, and it's like, what the hell? This is the man? No, and everybody's like, no way he's going to get Colin. A little shout out to Colin, who's heading off to the Navy right now. I see you, Colin. Yep. Colin said, no way this man's going to get elected president. And guess what? Here we are 3 years later.
All right, that's enough Trump news for the time being. Let's move on. Now, of course, we will keep you posted on these stories as today's program rolls along. Benny J, quick question here.
Yes, sir.
I have a feeling you know what it is.
Oh,
but
no, I'm stunned. I don't know what it is. I'm really on pins and needles.
You ready to find out what's going on in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon?
I was born ready.
I love that answer. Fantastic answer, because coming up after the break, people, we are going to find out what happened in this mayoral debate, and we're going to find out what else is news.
All right, I can't wait. It's time of day where the doctor pulls that little trick out of his little sleeve. We'll see what it is when we return.
Take it away, Nick Offerman. Oh, well, hold on. Oh, man, that would have been really awesome. All right, hold on. Okay, take it away, Nick Offerman.
Hi, this is Nick Offerman. I'm taking my show on the road and subjugating an audience to my humor.
All rise, American humorist Nick Offerman is coming September 15th on stage at the Chicago Theater.
It's an evening of deliberative talking and light dance that will compel you to chuckle while enjoining you to brandish a better side of humanity than the one to which we have grown accustomed.
Reserved seats are on sale noon Friday, March 22nd at the box office or at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Nick Offerman live.
Hey, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. We are live. We're about to do the local news. Leor Galil has entered the studio. I always love it when my guests come early, man. So Leor Galil is here. He's getting ready to, he's going to warm up, get ready to talk Lollapalooza, Andre Vasquez, 40th Ward, rappers running for office, all that good stuff. And but first, the doctor with the news.
Absolutely. We're about to find out what's going on locally. It's time for What Else is News, and the magic number is 12. Holy cow, where does the time go here? Wow, 12 days, less than 2 weeks away from our 2019 Chicago runoff elections. And, well, yesterday we purposely looked away from the mayoral mud fight happening at the moment. A mud fight between the Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle and former prosecutor / Chicago Police Board President Lori Lightfoot. But Ben, I hope you enjoyed that mini mayoral vacay we had there because, yeah, we're back at it, buddy. Time to get back in the mud.
I know. I remember I said, I'm going to talk about the state. Boom, we're right back in mayor's race.
That's right. We got to talk about last night's Chicago mayoral debate here. It was actually pretty formal and a little boring, but we do have the highlights. Right. We'll play those for you in moments. But first, well, Benny J saw this one coming a mile away. Chicago native hip-hop artist Chance the Rapper just made his mayoral endorsement. And, hey, here's a change. It's not a Lori Lightfoot endorsement for once. I've been seeing a lot of those lately. Yeah. No. Chance the Rapper is, in fact, backing Tony Preckwinkle in the 2019 Chicago mayoral runoff election.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I predicted that a couple days ago, Leor. We'll see what Leor has to say about this. Of course, Chance the Rapper's father is a longtime aide to various politicians in the city, including Rahm Emanuel, Barack Obama, and he had already endorsed, the father did, Tony Preckwinkle. So there was a split in the family in the first round where Chance was with Amara Enya, who was on our show last week. Just going to give a shout out. Folks can download that show. And his father had endorsed Tony. So, yeah, you got to figure that was going to happen.
Anything else you'd like to add about the Chance the Rapper, Tony Preckwinkle endorsement?
No, because we're going to be talking about it with Leor.
Excellent. That's a tease, guys, coming up. Stick around, all right? Leor's going to be talking about that with us. All right, now let's unpack this debate here. The debate was aired on ABC 7 Chicago. Shout out to them for the audio we're going to play. And while the ABC 7 crew did a decent job, it did not go unnoticed by this poorly uneducated downstater. When it comes to moderating a debate, ABC 7 has nothing on Carol Maureen of NBC5 Chicago. Just saying.
Oh, no, Carol Maureen is... Ladies, separate.
She's awesome when it comes to these debates. But let's run through the debate here now. Last night's debate began pretty much how all of these Preckwinkle and Lightfoot debates start out, with tons of talk about change. Yeah, that's right. They talk about it a lot.
Well, I actually think it's change versus the status quo.
Well, you know, my whole career has been about change.
We have an opportunity to break from that past and bring real, meaningful change.
And change is action and results, not simply words.
It's not just the desire for change.
Change is difficult.
Change.
A lot of change.
A lot of change, man. They should have had the song, should have been Changes, one of Leor Galil's favorite songs from the 70s by David Bowie. You know that song, don't you, D?
Oh, yeah, I know that song. Yeah.
Changes. Anyway.
No singing.
Oh, sorry.
We got the listeners. We got to keep them. You're singing. We'll not have us keep
I'm going to ask Leor if he likes Changes by David Bowie.
All right.
Later in the show. That's more teasing.
So tons of change talk, all right? But we're just going to get right to the issues here. I have audio from both candidates on quite a few issues. First up, it's one we discussed a couple of weeks back, Chicago's business community. All right.
Okay, what about them?
Let's hear what the candidates have to say about Chicago's business community. We will start off with Tony Preckwinkle.
Erica Maldonado.
What are you going to do to continue the stream of companies and businesses in downtown Chicago that brings a so important revenue to the city, but also what are you going to do to guarantee that a good part of that money is invested to improve the quality of life of residents that live in neighborhoods that most needed it in the south side and the west side of Chicago?
You know, Chicago is a great city, and downtown is an economic engine. not just for our city, but for our region and for our state. And so we clearly need to focus on downtown development. But we have to balance that development with concern about our neighborhoods. We cannot have a world-class city. We cannot have strong neighborhoods without strong schools, without people feeling safe in their homes, and without investing in our communities. So we really have to take on the challenge of balancing downtown development and neighborhood development. And this is the work I've done in my life, frankly, trying to build up communities and working with community residents and in school personnel to improve our quality of our public schools, working with the development community, the housing authority, and community residents to build up our neighborhoods, revitalize our neighborhoods, and working with police commanders and local officers and community residents to improve public safety in our neighborhoods. This is difficult work. It's work that I've done my entire life.
Thank you, President.
And here's Lori Lightfoot.
So the premise of your question is an either-or choice. It's not. It has to be both. We have to continue the growth in our downtown area because the downtown is really the economic engine, not only of Chicago, but in the entire region and the state. We set records for tourism. We need to keep that record flowing. But we also need to be mindful of the fact that we cannot continue to have our neighborhoods that are starving. We need to build up small business activity in our neighborhoods. We obviously need to make sure that we are addressing the violence that is raging out of control. We need to deal with the fact that we have too many people who don't have hope, don't have jobs, and don't have a connectivity to the legitimate economy. We cannot continue to tolerate the fact that in many of our neighborhoods, the illegal drug trade is the largest employer. So we have specific plans to address that, but it begins with focusing in the neighborhoods in particular on small business growth.
Thank you, Ms. Lightfoot. President Preckwinkle, you have the rebuttal.
You know, I think it's important that if we're going to stem the loss of population in our city, that we make it clear to our residents that we're fighting for them. And I've been a proponent of a $15 an hour minimum wage, and I'm the only candidate in this race that has a plan to implement it by 2021. I've been a big proponent of supporting our small and medium-sized businesses in our neighborhoods through both a microloan process and outright grants so that people can start and sustain and build their businesses. You know, we have to support our small and medium-sized businesses in our neighborhoods if we're going to have strong communities.
All right, thank you, President Preckwinkle.
All right. Well, listen, as much as I appreciate the sentiments expressed by Tony Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot about the need for balanced economic development in the city of Chicago, I have to tell you, folks, the policies of the last 25 years, and you know I'm going to say this because I write about it all the time in the Reader and I talk about it all the time in this show, the policies of the last 25 years have been unbalanced development in the city of Chicago. The whole economic development program that the city of Chicago has, the TIF program, is designed to fuel gentrification, build property values in the city, spread out the kind of development we've had from the Loop into the next ring of neighborhoods so that it becomes more and more expensive to live in the city of Chicago. This has been the planning strategy of both Mayor Richard M. Daley and Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and I have to say, neither one of these candidates, Tony Preckwinkle or Lori Lightfoot, at any point over the last 20 years really had much to say about it in opposition. Just telling it like it is, everybody. And this program is very much alive. This unbalanced development is very much alive. Leor Galil, my next guest, knows just what I'm going to say. He can read my mind. Lincoln Yards, $1.3 billion, taking property taxes to fuel the development of a gentrifying North Side neighborhood. Even while we need the money to do things like just on the front page of the Chicago Tribune today, spate of suicides by city cops raise alarm. We're spending money redeveloping a North Side neighborhood. We don't have money to have therapists to help our police officers. All right, folks, stop pretending, Chicago, as like this isn't a choice that has been made by the people that you've elected as your mayor. So whoever the next mayor is, and it's either going to be Preckwinkle or Lightfoot, obviously, whoever wins this election, I really hope that they put their words into action and they actually deviate from the policies of the last 20 or so years.
All right, up next, an issue I haven't heard brought up that much during the runoff election. Homeless veterans. Here is Tony Preckwinkle on homeless veterans. Oh, there we go.
The homelessness that we have for the veterans in the city of Chicago is tremendous. And what would you do to improve to get them off the street? Thank you.
President Preckwinkle, you have the first opportunity to respond.
Well, first of all, homelessness is a challenge not just for our veteran community, but more broadly across the Chicago community. And let me just say, it's disgraceful that we have allowed this this terrible social challenge to just fester. You know, whenever I drive down the Kennedy and the Dan Ryan, I see the tents along the fence, and we should all feel responsibility for that challenge. We have to invest as a city in affordable housing for families. We have to invest in housing, supportive housing for the homeless. And historically, we have not used our own resources. We've only taken the money that comes from the federal government for housing purposes, and we haven't invested our own dollars in it. We need to do that. We also need, as the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless has proposed, a real estate transfer tax on properties of more than $1 million, with the resources going specifically to fund housing for the homeless. This is a real challenge, and it's driven in part by our inability and unwillingness to deal with some of the mental health crises that we face.
Thank you, President.
All right, here's Lori Lightfoot.
Ms. Lightfoot.
Well, look, the question that the gentleman poses, I think, is the right question. What's happening with our veterans who have gone and risked their lives for us is frankly shameful. But it is a larger issue, as President Preckwinkle has indicated. That's why we have to think expansively about it. It's not just about the people that are on the street. Clearly that's an issue, and there's lots of different reasons as to why people are on the street, but it also involves people who are suffering housing instability, where they may not be on the street every night, but they don't have a permanent place to place their head every single night. So that's a challenge as well. That is precisely why, in listening to a lot of people that are involved in this work, we have proposed a graduated real estate transfer tax that will give relief for people whose homes are valued at $500,000 or less, but will increase that amount going up. We believe that we can generate $60 to $80 million every single year to focus on homelessness, focus on the root causes of the homelessness, and obviously help propel the growth of affordable housing options as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lightfoot.
All right, so each candidate believes we should raise the real estate transfer tax to make more money available to help the homeless. It's a notable pledge, and just so folks know, real estate transfer tax is the tax that's slapped onto the cost of the sale of property in the city of Chicago. So the more valuable the property, the more tax it yields. And property values are going up in the city, and so particularly in the Loop area, where buildings, my goodness, you know, somehow buildings like I don't know if they double in value in 10 years, but they go up tremendously. So it's good to see that they see eye to eye in that one. Let's see if they actually implement it once they're in office.
And finally, I'll play maybe the most interesting part of the debate last night, and I'll hand it to ABC7 for this idea. They had the candidates ask each other a question. It was very interesting. First up, it's Tony's question to Lori.
To ask the first question tonight.
Well, you know, change is not simply words, it's action. In the last 9 years, I've balanced budgets every year. We've made $850 million in cuts. You know, balancing a budget is a difficult, challenging process. The city has a huge budget. What's the biggest budget that you've ever managed? It's a complicated, difficult process. How can people believe that you can run this government, let alone change it?
Well, I've managed budgets at the police department, at the city's 911 center, and the $2 billion plus budget at the city's procurement department. So I have a wealth of experience, not only as being a senior executive in different departments in the city, but I've also helped in my private practice life, small businesses, middle market businesses, really try to navigate the sometimes difficult world of city government. I've been a senior equity partner at one of the largest international law firms in the country, helping CEOs and C-suite executives in some of their toughest, most difficult circumstances. But what I think is most important is not about our resume. It's about our resolve. It's about our resolve to form a city that is inclusive, that is responsive, and a city government that is open and transparent and is doing everything it can to move people forward. That's what people want to know about. What is our plan for the future? Resumes are fine, but what we need to talk about is the plan for the future.
Thank you very much, President. You have 30 seconds to respond to that.
You know, I think it's really important that we focus on our neighborhoods and on our communities, and that we understand that if we don't invest in our neighborhoods, we're not going to be able to have a world-class city. That's what we really need to focus on, our communities and community development. And I think that's the critical challenge that is faced. And let me just say, I've worked hard to change communities. I have a history of being a change agent, and I think that's critical. It's not just about words, it's about actions.
Thank you.
All right. Tony Preckwinkle forcefully trying to bring attention to what we've been jokingly called the David Axelrod point. Axelrod, a political strategist for years and years, was always articulate this: are they ready to be mayor from day one? You know, like somehow or other, Mayor Rahm was ready to be mayor from day one when we elected him. The guy never, I don't even know if he lived in Chicago really for more than like 2 or 3 years in his entire life, but somehow or other, he was ready to be mayor from day one. And so this is, you know, I think this may be Tony Preckwinkle's greatest strength as she heads down the stretch run, D, where she's going to be saying, hey, look, I've been the president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. I've put out budgets. I don't know how balanced they are, man. The balanced budget game, what a joke that is in county government, state government, and Chicago government. But anyway, put that to the side. I've put out budgets. I've dealt with all the pressing issues of the conflicts in government and making tough decisions. And Lori Lightfoot's a rookie. All she is a corporate lawyer. She's never had to do this, so I think it's I know a few voters myself who are like, I don't know. They feel that David Axelrod pull, man. Axelrod, woo, are they ready from day one? Day one.
All right, and finally, we'll do Lori's question to Tony.
Well, I'm going to take the question in a little bit different direction. All of you know that one way or the other, we're going to have an African American.
I've worked hard to change communities. I have a history of being a change agent.
Well, something happened there.
Well, I'm going to take
of being a change agent,
and
I think that's critical. It's not just about words.
Yeah, that's, what Lori asked a nice question. This is another part of the debate. So they asked a question of each other, and so Lori's question, I forget what it was, but it was a nice question about what a great moment this is going to be, because no matter who wins the election, will be an African-American woman being the mayor of the city of Chicago. And Tony would have none of it when it came time for Tony to ask the question. Her question, you know, she did not extend the olive branch. And that's probably because Lori Lightfoot is ahead in the polls, so I guess she figures she can afford to look all diplomatic and nice and everything. And Tony Preckwinkle is trying to scare some people into dropping away from Lori and supporting her. So any rough and tumble Chicago politics, D, it's not for rookies.
Yeah, sorry about that audio there, guys. But just like that, you're now in the know of what's going on in Chicago.
Well, I actually think it's change versus the status quo.
Well, you know, my whole career has been about change.
We have an opportunity to break from that past and bring real, meaningful change.
And change is action and results, not simply words.
It's not just the desire for change.
Change is difficult.
Change.
A lot of change. And now you'll have an answer the next time someone asks you, hey, what else is
There's a song called Chains. Kind of reminds me of Chains, my babies. Anyway, enough singing, all right? D, I'm going to tell you something right now.
Okay.
Something a lot of people agree on. Donald Glover agrees to this. Cool. Donald John Trump agrees to this. And Donald Flynn, a kid I used to play high school softball with. They all agree. You did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. We got Leor Galil sitting here. We'll bring him on right after this.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times Online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader Online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Benny J, take it away.
All right, Will, too, with me in the studio, as I've been saying all day, Leor Galil, Chicago Reader, music writer. Leor, thanks for coming. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for singing.
Yeah.
No, you know.
No,
I thought that's why. I thought you wanted me to like give you some criticism. And
yes. How's my pitch and range?
Try a different key.
I know you're another generation far younger than me, and so you're obviously more into music of the 21st century, maybe late 20th century. But are you familiar with the song Changes that I was brilliantly singing, the David Bowie song?
I only listened to the pre-war blues on 78, so I really don't know anything that we're talking about today. Yeah, I'm familiar with Changes. Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. I like Changes, like David Bowie. I wish David Bowie were showing up to Lollapalooza, but of course David passed a couple years ago. All right, the Lollapalooza lineup was announced yesterday, and immediately I said, I got to have Leor on to talk about it. The joke, of course, is I don't know a lot of the groups who are here, but who are headliners, which is pretty embarrassing. But why don't you talk about, Leor, some of the highlights or lowlights of this year's Lolla Festival, which will be here in August in the city of Chicago?
I don't know that they're either highlights or lowlights. It's Lollapalooza just seems to be this homogenous large thing that if you look at the lineups for major festivals throughout the U.S., it's more or less the same. Like Ariana Grande is also headlining Coachella, which is much more of an interesting festival to me. But, you know, that's pretty big that Ariana is here. She's the first, like, female pop star to be a headliner at Lollapalooza since Lady Gaga in 2010, which is kind of insane.
What does that say about Lollapalooza?
They're pretty behind in so many ways. Like and this lineup is still pretty behind. The fact that the Strokes, who also played in 2010, are headliners, and there's nothing interesting or new about that. Like I don't know what the Lollapalooza audience sees in them. The Lollapalooza audience tends to be much younger.
That was the sign I had. I was like, okay, I know these bands. I think they're behind.
Well, I actually know a song by the Strokes, which shows you how behind they are, that I would know a song. And that is a song that, in my humble opinion, they sort of ripped off from the great Tom Petty. You know, there's a song, like the opening American Girl by, you know that song from the 80s, I want to say?
Yeah.
So
I've listened to music before. I mean, Lollapalooza, their bookings have always been all over the place. And the thing about it is it's the largest festival in Chicago. You know, both in attendance, 100,000 people show up. There are some festivals that are larger in part because they're free, but as far as like large gated festivals, this is the biggest one. They're close to 200 acts. They have a ton of money. Live Nation is the main owner of C3 Presents, the promoter, which is, R.A. Emanuel's
younger brother of our current mayor, Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah, exactly. They have a ton of money to throw around. Live Nation is the largest music promoter in the world. So with that much money, you're gonna be able to throw it at least something that is interesting.
Well, Leor, when you look at this lineup, go through some of the other bands that are mentioned here, but when you look at this lineup, do you sense that there's a strategy that the Lollapalooza organizers are following, or are they just willy-nilly, who can we get to put in that people might pay money to see?
I think they're starting to pay a little bit more attention to streaming and to Spotify, and when the data is just like available and public knowledge, like you can see how many millions or billions of streams are out there, like it's kind of hard to mess up. Again, especially if you have that much money.
So in other words, you're looking at who's getting the most downloads, and that's who they book.
Streams. Ben, come on,
Man,
downloads. Who downloads?
This is a whole new world for Ben Joravsky. Streaming and downloading.
Speaking of songs,
keep saying, you got that.
So anyway, all right, so they look for who's most popular.
But in a lot of ways, they're still behind. I mean, this is a festival that continued to book Eminem like 3 times in the past 10 years. I was kind of surprised that Muse wasn't playing because they headlined like 4 times, and who cares about Muse? Obviously, a lot of people, but they're not cutting edge. Like, it's pretty interesting that they got J Balvin, who is, who has helped popularize Spanish language music, pop music in contemporary American audiences. That's amazing. He started doing that like 5 years ago or longer, depending on, your listenership. I'm kind of shocked it took them so long to book him. Shocked that he's not a headliner. Again, Strokes. I don't understand why the Strokes are headlining.
Okay. Now, when you say headlining, that means on the big stage. Is that it?
There are two. Lollapalooza has 8 stages.
Okay.
There are 2.
Insane. It's like
it's
a
insane.
buffet. It's a buffet of bands.
Yeah. Since 20.
Excuse me, Mr. Music over there. I'm sorry.
No. And I will echo Jim DeRogatis' sentiment that this is Walmart on the lake. It's supposed to. It's something for everyone, allegedly. And there's something to that. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's great that young people who have so few opportunities to see live music in Chicago during the year get this music festival that is theoretically catered to them, but also...
Now, why do you say they have so few opportunities to see live music?
Most venues, I mean... and this is a complicated aside, but a lot of venues in Chicago tend to have 21 and up shows. Like, the way that most venues make money, most small venues, is through alcohol sales.
Yeah.
And when it's an all ages shows, you have fewer and fewer opportunities to make money by selling alcohol. So it's just, common sense. If you need to make rent, if you need to pay your employees, and you do, you're going to have fewer all ages shows.
And Lala sells alcohol, correct?
Lala sells alcohol, but it's an all ages shows. There are a few festivals that I can think of that aren't all ages.
Yeah.
The Pitchfork recently did what they refused to acknowledge was a music festival, but it was 3 nights of music presented at the Art Institute. To me, that's a music festival.
Yeah.
And that ended up being 21 and up, in part also because it continued. There's a curfew in Chicago, like 10:30, I believe. Anyone under the age of 17 has to get home. So yeah, there are few opportunities for young people to see an art form that speaks directly to them. That's usually made by people their age. And it's cool that there are that opportunities. I wish it wasn't just Lollapalooza. I wish Lollapalooza wasn't the thing that everyone who knows, who doesn't pay attention to music thinks it's like, oh, this is music in Chicago, because it's not. It's a fraction of the festivals that happen in the city over the summer.
Who do you think is the most noteworthy performer that Lollapalooza will have on stage this August?
I don't know that there is one. A lot of it's sort of like, what took you so long? Why is Lil Wayne finally playing Lollapalooza? And again, why is he not headlining? And I mean, I've seen Wayne recently.
Miles died way in.
Yeah, it can't just be me.
Exactly. Like, Lil Wayne's big. He's very big in the younger generation, especially.
It's hard to explain it to anyone who isn't under the age of 25. But when he played Chance's festival, Magnificent Coloring Day a few years ago, Wayne raps in a very distinctive way, and it was fascinating to hear like everyone echo every word that he was saying. And he wasn't in great shape, which is kind of an obvious not knock against him, but it's something that he has to struggle with. He's been having seizures. He's been having serious health issues. He's in his 30s. He's struggling with addiction for a large part of his life, and he's not in great performing shape. But man, when he gets on stage, just the energy of the place is unlike anything. It's remarkable.
Will he be on the largest
He'll
stage?
be on one of the larger stages. They don't really announce that stuff till like a month out. They're a month and a half out. They say like, okay, these are the days that everyone's performing. There are 2 large stages. Almost every stage is named after a corporate sponsor, so I refuse to say any of that on the air now.
Okay,
I just don't care for it.
Yeah.
But the quote unquote main large stage is on the south end, and the second tier large stage is on the north end, kind of close to Millennium Park. So Wayne, I imagine, is going to be on the north stage. Like Ariana Grande, Childish Gambino, 21 Pilots, The Strokes are going to be on the south stage.
All right, now talk about Childish Gambino.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about Childish Gambino, in part because Donald Glover is so good at almost every other thing that he does.
Yeah.
And his big song, which is like fine, is much better and more effective as a music video than it is as a song, which is "This Is America." You know, I heard that one time without the video, and I was like, "This isn't right. This is a bad song." Like the video makes it like brings a complexity out of it that is like otherwise hard to.
So you think of him as a great actor, a great writer, a great comic?
His comedy is like fun, like his stand up is like not great. And I mean, when
Atlanta's
I first
pretty good TV show. Even I have seen Atlanta.
Atlanta isn't a stand up show though. Atlanta's a fantastic show. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like it achieves something that is remarkable that you cannot really explain without watching.
Yeah.
And that is great art, which is why, you know, some of his earlier rap songs are kind of despicable, to be frank. They're thoughtless and uncreative in parts, which is again weird when he's capable of doing so much great elsewhere. And it's, you know, he took this funk turn a few years ago that was like interesting, not great. There were like a couple really strong songs, but I mean, it's complicated. It's one of those things. It's like his celebrity is part of the reason that he's popular, and that's not to suggest that anything he does is not of merit. And that song, again, "This Is America" kind of achieves something that like is rare, and that's noteworthy. And yeah, he should be headlining. I just don't think he's that great.
Leor, I have to ask you, listen to the honesty with which you give your assessment of Childish Gambino, and I really am incapable of joining this conversation because the only thing I know about him as quote unquote music is "This Is America," which I watched as a video. Although I love Atlanta, which has really nothing to do with his music. So has anybody ever like countered you? Like, man, who are you? You know, I'm very critical of Chicago politicians all the time, so I get this a lot. Do you ever get it? Like, who are you?
All the time. I mean, I'm a person who lives in the world, and I have an opinion. And if somebody disagrees with me, I'm going to hear from them. That's great. That's the way it should be.
So have you ever heard from Childish Gambino fans who?
Sure, all the time. I mean, there was a point where when I was starting to freelance and he was starting to get big, I remember hearing his first EP and I was like, oh, this is great and really charming. And it was like really poorly produced. And he like took indie rock songs and just rapped over them with like the original vocals intact. It was messy, but it was like really great. And then he followed that up with like some pretty unremarkable music. And I wrote about it, and I heard from fans who were like really upset with me. But
Miles, are you upset with him for what he just said about Childish Gambino?
Not exactly. I mean, his older music, I did like it, but it was a little bit kind of sloppy at times. But I think as time has gone on, he's kind of formed more into the artist that I think that he should be like right now.
All right, now let's have a great debate right now. Since I got the two of you sitting right there, I happen to know something about this young man, Miles, who's our office editor. He loves Drake. Okay, what's your opinion of Drake?
Drake's like he went on a 3-album run that was really great, and then he's just like devolved into sloppiness. And I think, and here's something that like again, Lollapalooza's never booked Drake. What? Yeah, like how? They've gotten a little bit better. Last year it was probably their best year for contemporary rap for showcasing. Like,
Travis Scott.
Yeah, Travis Scott. I have mixed feelings about Travis Scott.
Oh man,
I think that the Sicko World's fine, but not because of Travis Scott. It's because of like, and partially because of Travis Scott. Like he orchestrated the thing, but there's so many other voices on there that made that album interesting. And when Travis Scott showed up, it's like this guy,
and when we were watching the Super Bowl, and Travis Scott came on.
I lost it.
Miles and his friends were going crazy, man. I was like, "Who's this guy?"
Well, I'm sure that was the one period where anyone was energized about anything in that Super Bowl and that halftime show, and the
halftime show was terrible, but that's a whole other issue. And we're talking with Leor Galil from the Chicago Reader, talking about the Lollapalooza lineup. I have a lot of other things I want to talk to Leor about before I leave Lollapalooza, but this is one point, and Leor put this out in a text because I sent him. A tweet, excuse me, because I sent him a text. The chain smokers are going to be at Lollapalooza. It's sort of an inside joke. I have to tell you, follow me in this. I have a confession to make.
Go ahead.
I've never heard anything by the chain smokers, but about a year ago, a person of the Gen X persuasion was telling me a story about, he works for some big time corporation. Listen to how rich this corporation he works for is. they had an office party. It wasn't even a Christmas party. It was just like an office party. A guy from our bowling league, Miles, not on our team. But anyway, so they had this big time office Christmas party. Their company is so wealthy that they could invite to perform for the company party 2 acts. One I had heard of, one I had never heard of. The one I had heard of was Stevie Wonder. The one I had never heard of was the Chainsmokers. And this Gen X guy, when he was telling me the story, was going, the millennials who were at the party were saying, when Stevie Wonder was performing, when is he going to get off the stage so we can hear the Chainsmokers? And ever since then, I'm like some old guy. Well, I am an old guy. I don't like the Chainsmokers.
And yeah, this is a big corporation and young corporate millennials who it sounds like they just don't have taste. That's who the Chainsmokers are for. It's smooth jazz for the EDM set, like the post EDM set, whatever you want to call it. It's like so uninteresting.
It's jazz?
No, smooth. It's music.
You're going to metaphor.
It is.
Okay.
It is. There is nothing substantial about it. You can put it in the background and it's like pleasant.
Ben Joravsky for 10 trivia points. What does EDM stand for?
I have absolutely no idea.
It's electronic dance music, and it's it's honestly like not a great term because anything can be electronic dance music. It just happens that like we're stuck with the term.
So why are they bringing the Chainsmokers to
They're
Lollapalooza?
super popular. Like again, if you're moneyballing a festival, which Lollapalooza is kind of doing, like they're super popular in Spotify. Like they get a lot of people who listen to them. I would argue that probably a large portion of their fan base are people who treat music like, secondary, like something you put on in the background, like something to they put on a Spotify playlist without really thinking much about or caring much about what they're listening to.
Will you be attending the Lollapalooza festival?
Probably not. I mean, I go hard for local acts. There are a few local acts on there that are great that I can see in almost any other context. And quite frankly, given Live Nation's involvement in Sterling-based plans for Lincoln Yards, I refuse to do anything to further help them, like get money to further help them in their aims. Because Live Nation, should they have deep involvement in Lincoln Yards, will upset what is like a pretty great music ecosystem in Chicago. It's bad enough that this festival exists as it does for 4 days, but imagine having the people in charge of that have their own venues in the city that they currently don't.
My guest is Leor Galil, and as I'm speaking to Leor, my next guest is phoning me. Isn't that funny how people like call me? Oh, I'm going to just interrupt my conversation.
Ben loves that.
And I'll run out the door to get the I'm going to give Ish a hard time. That's the dude who's calling me right now. Leor, but they're not here. You're still sitting here, and you just raised a point that I would love to follow up on, and that is this. The Lincoln Yards development deal, I always talk about it in terms of the financial cost to the taxpayers of the city of Chicago, the diversion of money for far more important things to subsidize and underwrite an upscale development. You were talking about a specific issue that a lot of maybe my listeners don't know about because I don't talk about it. Talk about the connection that you just alluded to.
At one point in, I forget how many months ago, Sterling Bay announced that among the ideas that they had envisioned for Lincoln Yards was an entertainment district owned and operated by Live Nation, which is the largest entertainment promoter in the world. They operate more than 200 venues around the world. They are also a management company that manages more than 500 artists. They also own Ticketmaster, a merger that should not have ever taken place. They have also been investigated by the Justice Department on multiple occasions for alleged monopolistic behavior. The most recent case happening within the past year between them and a promoter named AEG, a promoter that's much larger than any of the promotion companies that exists in the current Chicago music ecosystem. And should that entertainment complex happen, up to 5 venues of various sizes, that would completely disrupt. That would be Live Nation's into a city in which they have at one point declared their intention to crush Jam, which is the largest independent promoter in the city of Chicago. Chicago has managed to be like a great place for independent music promoters, which is wonderful. They give opportunities for young up and coming artists to, to perform in front of audiences. Like there's something about having people who are invested in the community, who live in the community, who are able to understand what it means to live in the city and to operate on its behalf. And Live Nation is a business. Granted, all these are businesses, but Live Nation is a business first. And if we were to open the doors to them, that could crush a lot of the venues that are currently operating here. And considering that, again, they help operate the largest music festival in this city. Imagine if you're a touring artist and you get an offer to play a Live Nation venue, and your incentive is, hey, you could play Lollapalooza. And the competition can't offer you that.
Leor, and it's listening to you now, I can understand. I've been crusading against handouts for gentrifying neighborhoods for years and years, but I've never had sort of the impact that opposition to Lincoln Yards had when it filled venues with people outraged about the Live Nation connection and the impact it would have on venues like the Hideout, my beloved Hideout, where I once a month I do a talk show with Mick Dumke. And listen, I welcomed it. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that brings attention to this scam of the TIF program, I welcome. But it's that's what it took to sort of wake people up. You know what I mean? To personalize the way we subsidize winners and losers. You get what I'm saying? Like certain people are the winners of the world and they get the breaks in the city of Chicago, like Live Nation, and certain people are the quote unquote losers of the world, like the Hideout, so we don't underwrite them. My next guest is walking into the studio, a big lover of rock and roll from the 70s, Alderwoman Sue Sadlowski Garza. We're going to let her settle in. I'm not done with Leor yet. So Leor, I'm going to switch focus now to aldermanic races. With Sue coming in, this is really appropriate. You wrote a story for the Reader about a month ago, I want to say, was it about a month ago?
It was early February, I believe, is when it came out.
Okay, 6 weeks ago, whatever. 6 weeks, a month. Technically, it was a month. Anyway, Andre Vasquez running for alderman of the 40th Ward of the City of Chicago against Patrick O'Connor, who's been the floor leader for Mayor Rahm, the floor leader for Mayor Daley, was the leading cheerleader from everything from the parking meter deal to the Olympics, et cetera, and so forth. Andre, in about 20 years ago, was a rapper, and some of his rap lyrics are under the category of controversial. Now, as they're heading into a runoff, Patrick O'Connor is using those lyrics as a weapon against Andre, putting those lyrics on flyers, which he's disseminating throughout the ward. When you watch this fallout, what's your thoughts?
It's completely bigoted attacks that are dog whistles. I mean, if you look at the imagery that is used on some of these flyers, it's all white people. And Pat O'Connor is suggesting that Andre is, he's taking rap lyrics completely out of the context within which they were written and the audience that they were written for and the time period that they were written for, and suggesting that this is a thing that Andre actually supports in his political environment, in his current life as a father, as somebody who left rap, as somebody who's apologized profusely prior to any of his lyrics being aired like this. It's kind of remarkable how Pat O'Connor has blanketed the ward with lyrics that are also very difficult to find. I mean, Andre's stuff isn't available. Like, it only came out on CD for the most part. You can't stream it anywhere. So, some people have uploaded rips of it via YouTube who are like fans of a very specific era of hip hop that Andre came out of. But you have to do serious work in order to hear this. And again, Andre has from the get-go acknowledged that like this is part of his past and this is something that he's had to grapple with. And I think his remorse is very real. But part of the reason that I wanted to write that story is I've seen how frequently politicians have maligned hip-hop, and that this is an art form made by people of color. It's the most popular art form in America right now. And I'd think about, like, if I was a parent in this ward and I had a kid who was into rap and I didn't know anything about it and I got this flyer in the mail, it's like rap lyrics, that would put a wall between me and my kid, you know, it's like, you can't listen to this thing. Like, if this is the only thing that I know about is this flyer with bad lyrics, like that is a really complicated matter. And I mean, the thing that a lot of Pat's attacks remind me of what happened to a guy who's now representing the 19th district in New York in Congress, a Rhodes Scholar and a Harvard Law graduate who was a rapper about 10 years ago, and his opponent, who lost, used his lyrics as an attack in the very same way. And I was reading up on this on my way over here just to be like, oh, I wonder what happened. And if you don't mind me quoting the Times right now, do you mind this?
Go ahead.
Am I running over?
We're all right.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So So this is a quote from the New York Times. Its first ad went further, interspersing images of Mr. Delgado as a candidate with those of him as a rapper known as AD, The Voice, using his decade-old lyrics to suggest that he is misogynistic, racist, and un-American. It's the exact same thing Pat O'Connor's doing now. The New York Times editorial board called out Delgado's opponent for being bigoted. It's the exact same thing Pat O'Connor's doing right now. And by doing this, to a larger degree, he is criminalizing an art form that is practiced by people of color still to this day. And that is evolving too. I mean, people talk about Chance, you know, like this great person that and he does great stuff on behalf of. He used some bad language. Donald Glover, again, used bad language. Common used slurs in his early songs and has come forward and been like, yeah, this was not cool. There's something very cynical about suggesting that something that you did 20 years ago, you can't evolve out of. And Pat O'Connor has used language, like derogatory language, to other opponents in like several months ago. It's insane to just like sit on the sidelines and see this happening. You know what I mean?
That's Leor Galil. He writes for the Chicago Reader. Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to bring you back. We got Sue Sadlowski Garza on deck. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hi, this is Nick Offerman. I'm taking my show on the road and subjugating an audience to my humor.
All rise, American humorist Nick Offerman is coming September 15th on stage at the Chicago Theater.
It's an evening of deliberative talking and light dance that will compel you to chuckle while enjoining you to brandish a better side of humanity than the one to which we have grown accustomed.
Reserved seats are on sale noon Friday, March 22nd at the box office or at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Nick Offerman live.
All right, everybody, your Ben Joravsky Show, hour number 2 for Thursday, March 21st is just moments away. But before we go any further, we would like to thank the following unions for helping us make this show possible. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. And no, Sue Garza, not Aerosmith, Aerospace Workers. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Big thank you to those unions. And, of course, today's show is brought to you by our friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show starts now. Yes, it is Thursday, March 21st, and live from the Chicago Reader's Sun-Times studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, Jake Lewis of the Chicago Federation of Labor will join us, and we welcome to our brand new studio the rock and roll and alderwoman herself, Sue Sadlowski Garza. And now your host, not rocking and or rolling, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
All right, very good. Sue Sadlowski Garza is in the studio. Sue Sadlowski Garza is in the studio. Everybody knows I love Sue Sadlowski Garza, and we're going to bring her on. Before we do, Dee says we have an update to do.
Absolutely, we do have an update. Our second Nick Offerman ticket giveaway is going to take place today. Nick Offerman is going to be at the Chicago Theater Sunday, September 15th. We gave away one pair of Nick Offerman tickets to Aaron. She named 9 famous Nicks. A lot tougher than you think, by the way, listeners, all right? When you start naming 9 famous Nicks, people who are nonfiction, all right? Nick Nolte was on there.
Yeah.
Nick Young, Nick Cannon. Aaron named 9 famous Nicks. The contest that we're doing today that we're going to wrap up on, it's, well, I couldn't think of a name for it. I was just calling it Suggestions for Ben, right?
Yeah.
But shout out to our friend John, a.k.a. JGT. He came up with a fantastic name for this segment.
Okay.
Yeah. Get this. Recommendations.
Okay, get it? Oh,
That's pretty good, right? John,
yeah, man.
up top, buddy.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Send John a car. Here we have a car for John.
Don't send anybody cars. But no, that was recommendations.
Yeah,
That's what we're going to call this, all right?
Okay.
So we went to both the Facebook and Twitter pages and asked all of you, since Ben Joravsky is an avid movie watcher, borderline obsessed with
I would
movies.
say, yeah.
We
Take the borderline out of that, yeah.
He's big on Netflix, and no, not the streaming Netflix, the where you get them mailed to you still.
Yeah,
it's 2004. He still gets them mailed to
I
him.
still get them mailed, too. Yeah.
So what we had all of you do on Facebook and Twitter is give Ben suggestions of movies that Ben should watch. And if Ben picks your suggestion, not only will he watch it, but you will win tickets to see Nick Offerman Sunday, September 15th at the Chicago Theater. So, yeah, we have a few movies, right? The list of movies. Ben, talk to him about the movies.
I'm going to talk now. Sue Sadlowski. Sue, are you a movie fan?
I am a movie fan. Just happy to be here today in your new dig. Solidarity is appropriate, right? Solidarity forever, brother.
Solidarity forever. Yeah, they like to look at the little poster we have on the wall and everything.
Pretty cool.
Big movie fan. Last one I just watched was Bird Box.
Oh, I saw Bird Box. Sandra Bullock. She's got the blindfold and she can't see anything, and the whole world blows up, and like weird things kill you. Yeah,
weird.
But most of the movies I went through the list that our listeners had suggested, I've already seen. Movie fanatic that I am, like Roma. I've seen Lobster. I've seen Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. This is a movie from the 70s. Remember Thunderbolt and Lightfoot? Do you remember that?
Very apropos for the election.
I know, yeah.
Yes, I do.
Different Lightfoot.
Yes, I do.
It's with, do you remember who's in it? Clint Eastwood?
I was going to say, isn't Clint Eastwood in there?
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. I think you and I were at the movie together downtown, or, you know. Sue Garza and I are roughly the same age, generation of 70s folks, so we would know Thunderbolt and Life. But anyway, I've broken it down to 2 movies that were recommended that I had not seen.
And who are those 2?
And those 2 is one movie called Brick. You ever see Brick?
Never heard of it.
Brick sounds like a pretty good flick. Brick is, wait, I'm going to make sure I get it right. Brick is a Daniel Craig movie. It's a crime flick about a cocaine dealer who wants to go straight. Daniel Craig, who was in James Bond. So that's a movie that I would like to see. I could rent. And Layer Cake. That's another movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I love Joseph Gordon. You like Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Yeah, I do. Okay, those are 2 that I'm gonna have to watch. Are they on Netflix?
Yeah. Do you do Netflix streaming, or do you do Netflix the little things that come through the mail?
No, those are gone. Do they still even do that?
Yeah, he does.
Or do you go to the Red Box?
No.
I use Redbox.
They still mail Netflix?
Yeah. They still, Ish, you know that, Ish.
You could get some really good movies on the mail-in Netflix.
Yeah, man. I'm
Ish
telling
knows.
you right now, Ish, by the way, right-hand man to Alderwoman Garza in the studio as well, looking very dapper in that suit, by the way, Ish. So it's gonna come down between Brick and Layer Cake.
All right, so you heard it, folks. Ben Joravsky has narrowed down his choices. There's 2. What will it be? brick sent in from our friend Ant on Twitter, or layer cake sent in from our friend P on Twitter? You're going to find out at the end of the program.
All right, very good. Sue Sadlowski Garza, I turned my attention to you before I'll put those movies aside. By the way, when you hear that little theme song, play it again. Does this remind you of something from the 70s?
Electric Light Orchestra.
Wow, very similar. There's
ELO.
actually it's a 60s song. Have you ever heard the 60s song Conquistador, your stallion stands? I mean,
Oh my God, yes. You're not Uriah Heep. It was oh my God, who sings it?
Procol Harum.
That's it, Procol Harum.
Hang tight, millennials. Have a fantastic program
That's it,
for you
Procol
here.
Harum. That's right.
All right, Sue Sadlowski Garza, let's get down to business here. She, of course, is the Alderwoman of the 10th Ward. That's the part of the city that bends way down southeast, kisses the corner with Indiana. The last time I saw you, you were nervous about your reelection. Apparently, you were victorious despite the nerves.
I think being nervous is a normal thing, right? If I wasn't nervous, I wouldn't be human, and you can never take anybody for granted. But truth be told, I opened a good old fashion can of Southside Womp ass. So, yeah.
What was the score, as they say?
Oh God, it was like 7,000 to 2,000 or something like that. Yeah, it was. I won every precinct except one, and then he won that by 41 votes.
And let's contrast to where we were 4 years ago, Sue. 4 years ago, you were running against the incumbent John Pope, who was a loyalist, put it mildly, to Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel was working
and
against
to
you.
Daley as well.
And to Daley. All the machine was working against you. Talk about how that election came down.
So 4 years ago at this point, we were in a runoff, and it was very tense. Things got really ugly from his perspective. They attacked my family. I was listening to the gentleman before you talk about the Andre Vasquez thing. They dug up things that were, when I was a kid, and things that I have said or done, or things that people had said about me that weren't actually true. It got really, really ugly, and it was really tense. And we actually went to bed on election night 80 votes ahead. We claimed victory election night, and woke up the next day and on a Wednesday, and the Board of Elections got 101 absentee ballots that all broke for him. So
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So we were down 22 votes. The absentee ballots kept coming in, and truth be told, 2.5 weeks later, when they finally validated the election, we won by 21 votes. So it was the worst 2 weeks of my life.
Every day you were going down to the Board of Election.
Oh, yeah. We had a team. I didn't go. My lawyer, Ed Mullen, love him to death. He advised us to stay away. We had a great team down there. He had a team down there, too. There was some pushing and shoving going on. Carl Camacho took a couple, left shoulders and right shoulders, and people jockeying for position, and it got tense. It really did. But we came out victorious, and we've accomplished more in 4 years than they did in 16. So
well, let's talk about that 10th Ward again, far southeast side, city of Chicago. Eddie Verdoliak was he ruled it as though it was his manor, and he was the feudal lord for years and years and years. It's steel worker country. There's a lot of steel mills, but those steel mills closed. Sue, talk about the legacy of the steel mills. Introduce, maybe our new listeners do not know who your dad is and the legacy he has.
So the 10th Ward was a true mill town, right? We had 9 steel mills there, and we had 134,000 jobs coming out of those mills, men and women. They were the economic engines that drove the 10th Ward. Every neighborhood had restaurants and bars and shoe stores and dime stores and Ben Franklin's and Woolworths, and we were a thriving community. Wisconsin Steel was the first one to go. People showed up at the gate one day and couldn't even clean out their locker. They locked the gates. I want you to imagine being our age, 58, 57 years old, working somewhere for 30 years, fresh out of high school. We never had college fairs. We had mill fairs in our high schools. They'd recruit you. You'd be 17 years old getting out of high school, and you'd go to work making $16 an hour in 1973. It was a good buck, right? It was. You couldn't get a job like that anywhere. People from all over the world came to work in the 10th Ward. And My dad was 26 years old, worked at U.S. Steel, 1962. He was elected, youngest guy ever to be elected to Local 63 and Local 65, and 26 years old, in charge of 24,000 steel workers. Crazy. Led a grassroots uprising movement, Edward Sadlowski, grassroots movement of steel workers to change the way that people do things, working conditions, voting on your contract. Workers never had a right to vote on their contract. It was the suits downtown that did everything at the table. Workers never had a right. And believe it or not, my dad just passed away in June. I never knew that little tidbit. I knew that the movement that he created was, he left a legacy in the 10th Ward, but when he passed away in June, I got letters from Quebec, Texas, New York, Florida, Belgium. I mean, it was crazy. Some guy got shot in the neck in Texas when they were on a picket line when my dad was running for president. Just things I never knew. But I got a call in December at the office from the New York Times, and they were going to do a story about the 20 most influential people that passed away in 2018. And my dad was the first guy on the list. And I read the piece, and it said he changed the labor movement because of what he did. Rank and file got to vote on their contracts, and now that's something that is the norm, right? People get to vote on their contracts everywhere. Yeah. So he changed the labor movement, and I didn't know that little tidbit. I mean, if you asked him, like, hey, what were you doing? What the hell do you think I was doing, you cockamamie? You know, that's what he'd tell you. But I'm very proud of the legacy my dad left, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know,
and how it goes.
And Rahm just named a school after my dad.
All right, let's talk about that. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of the city of Chicago, named a school after Ed Sadlowski. Man, oh man, Shevitz, I've seen it all. This is me talking, so we'll see if Sue agrees. When Sue first came into office, Rahm, in my humble opinion, was exceedingly disrespectful to her, did not treat her with the respect that a newly elected alderman warrants, and some of the comments he made to her, treating her like a little kid, that she was going to be disruptive in the Chicago City Council. Remember,
he didn't want a circus.
Yeah, he didn't want a circus.
Shaking his finger at
Yeah, a little finger. I don't think he treated Ed Burke that way when he came in. Oh, Ed, let me hug you, man. And, of course, he was for Pope, your opponent, etc. And then in the early days,
he gave him a lot of money, yeah.
Gave him a lot of money. He wouldn't, and then he gave him a job.
Plus, I was part of the teachers union, which, had a, connotation of we were going to be rivals and enemies. And here's the thing. It started out very contagious. The relationship never evolved into a friendship. I can't say that. I think we had a good working relationship as far as at maybe the second and third year in. Mm-hmm. I never felt like there was an open door policy. I still don't feel like there was an open door policy. To be perfectly honest, I still have a very difficult time trusting anything anybody tells me from in City Hall. I've been told things and they've never come to fruition, or they tell me something and it's not the truth. So I have to stick. My circle keeps getting smaller, right? Yeah. And I trust the people that are around me that I know do good work, and just keep pushing forward, and that's it. So,
all right. Now, one of the things that went down in those first 2 years, there would be ribbon cutting ceremonies in the 10th Ward, and the Rahms people would not invite you. You're the alderman. They always alderwoman, excuse me. They would always invite you. You invite the elected officials, and it was almost as though they didn't acknowledge you as the elected official of the 10th Ward. Obviously, things have changed. Mm-hmm. If Rahm Emanuel has named a school or used his clout and influence to get the Board of Ed to name the school.
Well, here's the thing. And my brother said it best, because my brother actually spoke at the ceremony, and he said Rahm Emanuel has finally done the right thing. He was very smart in naming a school after a labor leader, because it's not just something that is an amazing thing for our family. It's something amazing for the neighborhood and the labor movement. And the cool thing about it is we had 2 days. They called us on a Wednesday and said that they're going to name a school after my father on a Friday. So we had less than 48 hours. And mind you, my mother doesn't live here. So, and neither does my brother. So we didn't get a chance to invite a lot of the guys, you know, the 80-year-old guys that worked with my dad in the mill and that were part of the movement. And I didn't get a chance to invite everybody that I wanted to. But, and I'm still catching a lot of flack for that. But my brother got up there and said, you did something right.
Was Rahm there at the ceremony?
Yeah, Rahm was there. And all the trades came. There was maybe 30 guys, different trades.
Like 40.
The brickies, the iron workers, local, 134.
The brickies.
Well, that's what, the
brickies,
the tin knockers, the brickies, the tin knockers, they were all there. So the Sparkies, anyway, there's all, you got to have nicknames for people. South Side. Anyway, they all showed up, and that was the moving part to me.
Yeah.
Having my mom there was amazing, but having all the trades show up, because I didn't know that they were coming, and to have them standing there and they're like hip hip hooray hip. I mean, they made it for me because it's about them.
Yeah.
We don't have a school named after a labor leader. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't have that. Now I'm just hoping it passes the Board of Ed on the 27th.
Oh, in other words, hasn't officially. Oh, that's one last little dirty deed Rahm will do to you. We'll pull the votes.
I was left holding the bag on that one because the LSC didn't know about it either.
No. Wait, the mayor himself didn't call you up and go, Sue, I just want to let you know I'm doing this?
You know what he did? And my dad died June 10th. He called me June 11th, and he was very gracious. He was very gracious, and he wanted to know how I was, and his condolences to my mother, and he was very nice. And he said, I want to talk to you about something, but I want to wait. And I said, no, you got to tell me now. I'm not good at waiting, and don't dangle a carrot. You got to tell me. And he said, I'd like to name Southeast Elementary after your dad. And this was a day after my dad died, so I was a blubbering idiot. And,
yeah.
I said, that's amazing. It's gracious. I said, but I have one request. Please don't do it till after the election, because I don't want to make this about me. My opponent, they'll make it about me.
Yeah.
Like I'm pulling some kind of clout, or I had nothing to do with this. And I just forgot about it. I really wasn't, you just go on, you're in an election, you're this, you're that, and we're just doing our thing. And I forgot. And then I got a call Wednesday after the election, the day after the election. We're doing it Friday. I'm like, oh my God. So.
All right, now, so I got to ask you this one.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not as close to Mayor Rahm as you are. I'm just teasing you there. So I don't know him as well as you, to put it that way. But if I know Mayor Rahm the way I know Mayor Rahm, I'm sure he tried to extract something from you at some point. Hey, Garza, I named that school after your old man.
Jesus, Ben, you're smarter than you look. Of course he did.
Oh, man.
He tried to get it. Listen, I got to tell you, I've never in the 4 years that I've been in my tenure have ever felt more like a piece of meat in a piranha tank as I did on the Wednesday of the Lincoln Yards vote.
Oh, talk about that.
Throw me in a tank and just have everybody picking. He had the BAs texting and calling me. He knows where my heart is.
Yeah, man.
Other aldermen were in my ear. He was trying to cut deals with me. He was up on the pulpit. I call it. He looks at me, come up here. I go up there. He's like, I've been good to you. We have a good working relationship. I did this, did that, blah, blah, blah. I named a school after your father. And I said, wait a minute. You named a school after a labor leader who happens to be my father, and that was the right thing to do. That was not a freebie towards me. And you know what? To be perfectly honest, if he did do that to get a yes out of me, shame on him. But I don't think he had an ulterior motive. I don't.
Wow.
But he said it. But he said it to me, and he said, I want you to look at me when you vote.
Oh, my, you're kidding me.
I swear to God.
No.
Yes, sir.
Like your conscience would.
Yeah. So you know what I did? After everybody was taking a piece of meat out of me and doing what I had to do, and I'm sweating and like, oh, my God. I got up to speak, and I said my spiel, and I said what I had to say, why I thought it was wrong. And when I voted, I looked right at him, and I said, no.
Oh, my God. What did he do? Did he go,
No, he didn't do anything. But he was looking right at me, and I was looking right at him, and You're not going to intimidate me. You know what? I was put in this position to advocate for the people in the 10th Ward. Yeah. I'm not going to give $1 billion in TIF money to some guy, to Sterling Bay, who's going to develop there regardless if I give him the money or anything. I told him, give me $35.5 million to build a new school that's crumbling, and I'll be a yes.
Oh, my goodness.
They came back and they said $4 million. I said, ha, ha. No.
Wow, the wheeling and dealing and the
unreal. It's freaking real.
Here's something I don't understand. Follow me on this one, Sue. Rahm had the vote. You need 26 votes to pass that cockamamie zoning deal, to quote your dad, cockamamie, that would allow him. By the way, that's the
TIF votes
TIF
in
money.
April.
Yeah, the big daddy vote or big mama vote's coming up right around the corner. We'll get to that. You only need 26. What does he care what Sue Garza does in the 10th Ward?
It's a sign of power. It's an ego thing. That's the only thing I can figure out for this, because he wants to say, I got her. That's it. That's all it is. Because everybody, other aldermen, everybody's like, oh, it's a CTU thing. You're just going against because it's CTU. I said, no, that has nothing to do with it. I had BAs calling me all week. From Tuesday, Wednesday, and I told them why I was voting.
Wait, what's
no.
a
business agent?
Union
from
BAs.
Different union
Got
guys,
it,
and I talked to them, and I was honest, and I told them why I was voting no. And my bridges are falling in the water, my schools are falling down. I have 400 miles of streets, and I can only fix 8 blocks with my menu money.
Yeah,
it's putting a Band-Aid on a machete wound. I can't get anywhere. I don't blah blah blah. You're sending me General Iron. What am I getting for that? Right. So after I went into my spiel, all these guys were like, because they were being told to call me, which I get it. They're doing their job. And I'm not trying to take bread and butter off anybody's table. My husband's an iron worker. My sons are an iron worker. My best friend is an electrician guy. I get no one fights for union prevailing wage more than me. Nobody. I laid down in front of a dump truck on freaking 104th and Hoxie 2 years ago because there were scab laborers coming from Alabama. Yeah. So who does that?
Yeah.
The weirdo, the rock and roll alderwoman from the 10th Ward does it. But anyway, the point being is it's a power thing.
Yeah.
You know, the more he gets, the more power he shows. And people were making comments. If you don't vote with Alderman Hopkins, we're not going to vote with you when you need something. And, you know, the more people picked at me, the more angry I got. Because when I stood up, I said, this is not me against you.
Yeah.
This is not... that has nothing to do. It's what's the right thing.
Absolutely. And let me just say this to 10th Warders out there. That argument, vote with Brian Hopkins. Brian Hopkins is the alderman of the 2nd Ward, and Lincoln Yard's deal is in the 2nd Ward. And so people try to treat this as like, well, if Alderman Hopkins wants it, we should all want it. I'm going to tell this to the people of the 10th Ward, Sue Sadlowski Garza's constituents. Hey, folks, it's a TIF. It's a TIF deal. It's going to raise your taxes, okay? Right. So Sue Garza should be able to vote whatever way she wants. Any alderman should be able to vote any way he or she wants because it's going to raise your tax. Didn't you promise the voters of the 10th Ward that you would try to avoid unnecessarily raising their property taxes? Wasn't that a key issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And I voted no on the first. I mean, I took office in May. We voted on the property tax deal in October. That was another thing that, you know, I wasn't lobbied as hard for that one as I was on this one. No.
Well, the big daddy vote will be coming down in April. It'll be interesting to see whoever our mayor-elect is at that point. Follow me on this one, Sue. It's going to be a lame duck city council.
Yep.
Overseen by a lame duck mayor.
Yep.
Each of one of them is out the door in about 3 weeks, whenever the inauguration, the first week of May, whenever it is, and you're going to have a newly elected or mayor-elect, either mayor-elect Lightfoot or mayor-elect Preckwinkle, all right? And I often wonder, if those two aldermanic candidates are true to their word, they're going to ask for a deference on this all-important vote. That's what they say. When they come on the Ben Joravsky Show, that's what they say, all right? So which way do you think the city council will go if the mayor-elect gets up in front of the city council and says, you know what? I want you to defer in this so I can look and can have my financial wizards look through this contract and see if it's in our best interest. Who do you think the council will go, the outgoing mayor or the incoming mayor?
Well, you know what? This is really interesting you're saying this, because I was hoping that the meeting that just passed 2 weeks ago, I was hoping that they would, either one of them would show up for public comment, and they didn't. And if I was running for mayor, I would have been there. I would have been there and I would have gave my public comment, because 50 people are sitting there. They're listening to what you have to say. I don't know what the hurry is here. Sterling Bay is not going away. They're not going to go away if we wait till November, September, right? Or if we wait till June or July. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to back out of this deal. What is the hurry here? Because the mayor Rahm wants it to be his legacy?
The ego legacy.
The ego legacy. Yeah.
That's what it is, right? I mean, so I don't know. I hope they're there. I hope they're there in April. If they're listening, I hope whoever is the mayor at that point shows up and the newly mayor-elect shows up and gives their word.
All right, you hear that, Lori? You hear that, Tony? That's what Sue Sadlowski Garza is saying from the 10th Ward. We have Jake Lewis, who'll be coming on from the Chicago Federation of Labor. Sue Sadlowski Garza in her her top aide. Maybe I can twist her arm to stay a little longer. We'll see. We'll be right back after this.
The Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Sun-Times. For the latest in Chicago and Illinois news, sports, weather, and the latest in national news from a real Chicago frame of mind and real Chicago writers, check out the Chicago Sun-Times. Read the daily paper or online at chicago.suntimes.com. And hey, if you have a little extra cash, subscribe. And by the Chicago Reader. For a deeper dive in the daily Chicago news and for all of what's going on in this city, you gotta read the Reader. Music, arts and culture, film, extensive event calendars, concert listings, and more, including weekly political columns from writers like Maya Dukmasova and, yes, our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader is free in newsstands and at chicagoreader.com. That's chicagoreader.com. Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. Sue Sadlowski Garza said she had to leave. I twisted her arm, and I got her to stay a little while longer. Jake Lewis has joined us as well from the Chicago Federation of Labor. Jake, welcome to the show.
Oh, so good to be back, Ben.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Jake was a frequent visitor to my last show, wherever that was. Can't remember where it was.
Yeah, me
somewhere.
either. We missed you, Jake.
Yeah,
we got some luxury
so
digs here.
Closer.
Yeah, I know.
So much closer.
And Jake, you're sitting next to a legend from the southeast side of the city of Chicago, Sue Sadlowski Garza. All right, now, Sue, before I let you get out that door, I got to ask you the all-important question. Jake's listening as well, because I'm interested in what he has to say on this, and that is this. You talk about labor needs. You talk about the need for Chicago to remain a city filled with good, high-paying, union-protected jobs, the rights people have for collective bargainings. Our last mayor I know a lot of my labor friends love him to death. I'm not quite sure why. A little weak on labor issues, particularly when it comes to teachers in unions. So, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts when you see the race we have now, Tony Preckwinkle, president of the Cook County Board versus Lori Lightfoot? Have you, first of all, endorsed anybody in the race?
Haven't endorsed anybody. My union did. I actually am staying independent, and I'm actually excited about both of them. First of all, because we have the chance to have the first black woman mayor, which I think is an amazing will be an amazing contribution to Chicago. But I'm not going to endorse anybody. And truth be told, both of them lost my ward miserably. They both got 533 votes, respectively. The same amount of votes.
Is that
dead
right?
last.
Wow.
533 votes apiece.
Who was the breakdown? Who won your ward?
Chico won my ward. Mendoza, Daly. Vallis, Daly was third.
Daly,
Vallis
man,
was
he's
fourth.
going to cut all those pension funds. He won the 10th ward. Yeah,
listen, here's the thing. You know what? Nobody saw Lori coming.
Yeah.
You know, they spent the 5 months, all the top tier candidates were bashing each other, throwing this, throwing barbs, throwing that, and boom, shakalaka, there she goes. People, but what does that tell us as a society, right? People are sick of the status quo. They're sick of it. That's the thing. You look all across this country, Ocasio, and I mean, just on and on. People are sick of the status quo. That's what it is. They want something different, and they don't care what it is. Look at the guy in the White House. They don't care. And the Democratic Party better start taking a look at that.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, Jake, what's your thoughts on what Sue just said?
Well, you're absolutely right. She came out of nowhere. And I think a good thing to remember here is so often in politics, you hear about how money determines the outcome of the election and whoever has the most money is going to win. That was not the case in the primary by far. I mean, the candidate who raised the most money, Bill Daley, didn't make the runoff. And you had Lori Lightfoot, who was significantly further behind in the money race, and she's in there now. So don't necessarily look at the fundraising numbers. You got to look at the electorate. You got to look at the issues that people are thinking about. Those are much more important than dollars and cents.
100%. And people, you know what? People, the political people that are out there keep looking at the numbers, right? The numbers, the money numbers, the poll numbers, the this numbers. Throw that crap out the door, brother, because that don't adhere no more.
Yep. All right, Sue. Now let me ask you this. And Jake, this question will go to you, so you're going to have time to think about it. I'm going to ask Sue right now.
Great.
And that is this. Many of my friends of the Tony Preckwinkle persuasion are trying to convince me to vote for Tony over Lori because they say we can't trust Lori Lightfoot on issues that matter to you, which is funny. The issues that matter to me, nobody's ever championed before. So I'm like, why would she be any different than anyone else? But anyway, in other words, fair distribution of city money. We talk about the TIF program, you know, and supporting unions and supporting labor and not beating up the teachers union, which is what's a favorite tactic of Mayor Rahm in his first term. So do you share or let me put it this way, what words of assurance could you give people in the city of Chicago that Lori Lightfoot is not worthy of these worst fears that so many Tony Preckwinkle people are trying to spread?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You can never dispel people's fears because they're genuine. They're their feelings. I'm not going to try to take those away from them. But, I mean, Lori Lightfoot came out of nowhere. Nobody knew anything about her. I knew about her because she sat on she was appointed to the police board thing. She seems like a very smart, independent, strong woman. Tony Preckwinkle's credentials are way better than hers. She was an alderman. She's a Cook County Board president. I know where she stands on labor. I mean, she's consistently been on the right side of the fence for a lot of things. But I think people are looking at her like somebody that's been here too long and is part of the machine. And that's the press is spinning it that way, right? I mean, she's getting killed in the press, and that's not fair because what you read in the press is not always true. So that's where I feel that she's getting a raw deal. I really do.
Talk about Tony's getting a raw deal.
Tony's getting a raw deal, yeah, because she does have the qualifications. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And she's always been on the right side of the fence as far as labor, unions, teachers. She's always done the right thing. I just think people are looking at Lori as something fresh, something different. I talk to people about Lori all the time, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. They didn't know that she was appointed by Rahm. They didn't know what she did before that. They just look at her as somebody different. And that's politically, people aren't taking a look at what that means to people.
But do you have concerns that Lori Lightfoot might turn in? You don't have concerns that she's going to betray the union movement or betray?
She made a comment that worried me a little bit. You know, we have to hold these unions accountable. That she said that in one of the debates. I don't know what that means. It's up to us to make sure she doesn't eradicate unions as we know it. We fought too hard. No one's gonna break the labor movement in Chicago. I mean, I think we're too strong. I mean, we've showed that with Rauner. Right? I mean, we won Chicago. Chicago kicked his butt.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did. I mean, that's. Yeah. There's no way that we're not going to let a mayor. And here's the thing: if she does, if she squeaks in there and starts wreaking havoc on the Union Brothers and Sisters movement, then there'll be hell to pay because we're strong, and she'll be one and done. You know what I mean by that, right?
I know what one and done is. Jake, your thoughts?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The labor movement was a big, big winner in November of last year with the gubernatorial election and the other elections up and down the ticket and all over the state, really. And I think even coming out of the primary, you're seeing two candidates emerge who, by and large, are friendly to labor, open to labor, willing to work with labor, willing to listen to labor. And that's a great thing. I mean, it's good that there are two choices. You've seen some folks go in with Lightfoot. You've seen some folks go with Preckwinkle. To be clear, the CFL is neutral in the race, and I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. But whoever is the next mayor, whoever it's going to be, first of all, it's important to recognize, just as you said, historic that it's going to be a black woman as mayor, and something that we should absolutely be celebrating. And number two, we're interested in working with them, interested in moving the city forward, making sure that working people are represented.
All right, now
That's how I feel too.
Let's move out of Chicago for a while, talk about some presidential politics. As I keep saying, Sue, April 3rd, everything changes. It's all about the 2020 election and who the Democrats are going to nominate, who they think is the best person to take on one President Donald John Trump. And your ward... Well, your ward is sort of a very interesting barometer because I believe Trump got about
he won
30%?
The southern part of my ward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Trump voters.
Yeah.
You know about Trump voters.
Oh, yes, I do.
So what are your early thoughts on the presidential race and particularly the Democratic primary?
So we need to take into account, especially the Democratic Party, we need to take into account what's happening. Exactly right back to what I said. People want something different. Today's paper, the Chicago Sun-Times, by the way, has an article in there about run, Oprah, run.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
You know, I'm not opposed to that at this point because we need to figure out who's going to be able to beat this guy. And that's where I'm at mentally and politically. I don't know if, Bernie can do it. I don't know if the momentum is still there. I don't know if Joe Biden can do it. We really need to think about who can beat Trump. My main goal is we need to get him out. Whatever we have to do, we have to get him out. Seriously.
Oh, but we've also got to make sure that we're pushing a forward-thinking agenda that's going to help lift up working people. I mean, I think when you look back at 2016, in those key states that Trump won, sort of surprise states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, a lot of people didn't know what the agenda Hillary was bringing to the table and why it was going to help working people. And that's something that we just have to make sure that we're up and out front with, and we don't disregard those voters, we don't leave them behind, or we don't only give them the message of this is somebody who's different from Trump.
I agree with you on that, but I also think that the people that vote, this is going to sound really bad, but there's a lot of people, not everyone, that voted for Trump that are uneducated voters. And regardless of what we tell them or what information we give them, they're going to look at the person that's running, and if there's somebody that they recognize and has been part of that political scene for a long time, they're shying away from those people. That's happening across the country. I'm not saying that we have to run Mickey Mouse by any means, but, well, that could be better than what we got. But I just think that we have to be really smart about what we do, and we do have to have a message that resonates with people, not just drain the swamp, right?
People think that politicians, and this is politicians in Washington or Springfield or in Chicago, they think that politicians don't get it. They think that politicians don't care about them, and they think that whatever a politician is saying is not going to pan out. It's going to be a lie, or it's a deception, or it's a mistruth, whatever the case is. We have to make sure that we start earning back that trust, that the policies that we're putting forward are going to be ones that lift up everybody. They don't just go to the people at the very top. They don't just go to the elites. We want to make sure that working people, regardless of party, really know that when we're going there and we're fighting for them, we actually mean it.
All right, let's get down to a little specifics here. It shows how difficult this challenge is. Now, follow me on what I'm about to say. I talked about this earlier in the show. There's a story in today's Sun-Times by Tina Svandelis about a poll regarding Pritzker and his unpopularity in regions of Illinois. J.B. Pritzker, I did not vote for him in the Democratic primary, but I will concede this point. J.B. Pritzker has already signed into law a bill that would raise the minimum wage in the state of Illinois, and he's also proposed a bill that would raise the top rates that the wealthiest people have to pay.
I love it.
Progressive politics, okay?
Yep.
His unfavorables in the state of Illinois are on par with Donald John Trump, who has done the exact opposite. He opposes the minimum wage, Donald Trump does, and has a tax bill that he threw through Congress last year that would cut the rates that the wealthiest people do. Now, Sue, how can you have a message if, like, the guy who's pushing the message that so many people supposedly want, a progressive tax, a raise in the minimum wage, this is what people, supposedly working people want, or union people want, or liberal people want, etc., and he's
still tanking in the polls.
What is that all about?
It goes right back to my point. Here's the thing. Those people in downstate Illinois where he's tanking in the polls are not educated on what he's doing. Most, 90% of the people that vote are not educated on the issues. They're voting because the lady looks better, or he's cute, or she's black, or she's white. Or that's how people vote, at least in the 10th ward. At least in the 10th ward, that's what they do. How many people have come to me in the past month and said, who should I vote for? Who are you voting for? Tell me who you're voting for, because that's who I vote for. I never realized how much influence somebody can have with that. And I've said, and I've given them my pros and cons about both. Make up your own mind, right? We got to teach people on how to educate themselves on voting. We're talking to 3 people around this table who educate ourselves on candidates. We're not the norm.
Absolutely.
No,
well,
we're not.
No, that's absolutely right. On anything.
No, but the point being, and just to what Jake says, we can get the message out, but guess what? The message ain't resonating because we got the message out about Hillary. They looked at her as part of the problem.
Well, and it goes back to trust. I mean, people don't trust politicians. More and more, they don't trust the news media. The people that they do trust are the folks around them, their neighbors, their friends, folks they go to church with.
That's why Oprah could win.
Yeah, and there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much fake news. There's so much stuff on social media, and it swirls around in people's heads, and then they just don't know who to believe anymore. And it's a serious problem when you're talking about serious issues like raising the minimum wage and fixing the state budget. I will say about that Simon poll specifically. So Pritzker in that poll is about a +2 favorability on net. Trump is a -20. So his numbers aren't great. Pritzker's numbers aren't great, but Trump's numbers are way, way worse. And that's something to keep in mind in the state.
That's true.
And the other thing is...
Wait, explain that. Just break that out a little bit. You may have lost a lot of listeners. You said that so fast. Go through and break out that.
So when you look at these job approval polls, what they'll say is, do you approve of the job they're doing, or do you disapprove of the job they're doing? And then the easiest way to get sort of a quick snapshot of that information is to take the net favorability, or the net job approval. And that's literally just the people who think you're doing a good job minus the people who think you're doing a bad job. Pritzker in this Simon poll was 40 good, 38 bad. So that's a +2 on net.
I see.
Trump was a -20 on net. So even though those thumbs up numbers, those positive job approval numbers are in the same region for both of those politicians, those minuses are way, way higher for Trump, and definitely a good thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these poll numbers. The other thing I will say just very quickly is Pritzker's favorability numbers never really got that high, even during the campaign.
No, they didn't.
So, and a lot of it was negative stories and
he's a billionaire.
Yeah, there were a variety of different attacks that he weathered. He won by 15 points, so the people of Illinois clearly chose him, but it isn't really terribly surprising to see sort of uneven coming out a few months after he's taken office.
All right, that's Jake Lewis, Sue Sadlowski Garza in the studio as well. We're going to take a brief break and come back to close it up. Be right back.
Hey there, producer Dennis here. Thanks for finding and listening to the brand new Ben Joravsky Show. All right, so here's how this works. The Ben Joravsky Show live streams on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Once the show is over, you can listen to the replay on our YouTube channel, or we throw it online for you to download by 4 p.m. Where can you download the Ben Joravsky Show, you may be asking yourself? Well, you may be asking yourself a fantastic question. You can find previous Ben Joravsky shows and guest interviews through several outlets. The Chicago Sun-Times Online, chicago.suntimes.com, the Chicago Reader Online, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, pick one. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. So, let's recap. Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Live streamed on the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel and downloadable by 4 at chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Yes, the Ben Joravsky Show is back. We're live and downloaded. Tell your friends and enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky,
all right,
take us home.
Yeah, that's Ish on piano.
Wow.
Not only when he's not being chief of staff to Sue Garza, he plays the piano, man. He went to Whitney Young High School. Did you know that?
Harmonica as well.
He actually does
plays
play
the harmonica and piano. Oh, you should hear him on ukulele. He does a great imitation of Tiny Tim.
I do not believe that. He don't even know who Tiny Tim is, man.
Tiny Ish.
People don't know this about Ish. Ish went to high school with Carlos Ramirez.
He sure did.
You know, with Carlos, all right? He knew Carlos back in the day. Anyway, all right, that beautiful music, which is not Ish, but that beautiful music means we're coming down the wire. Another great show, and Sue Sadlowski Garza and Jake Lewis in the studio. And so you mentioned Oprah.
Yeah.
Are you for real about Oprah? Do you think Oprah could win over voters in the 10th ward?
I'm being, you know what, I'm being silly and sarcastic, but to be perfectly honest with you, it goes right back to what Jake said. She's somebody that people trust, even though she's a TV personality. She's somebody that people, you know, don't see as a politician. She's somebody that people trust and go to every single day, went to every day for 25 years. She's the perfect candidate, you know, AKA Ronald Reagan. I don't know. If a guy from The Apprentice... You know, I know.
Yeah,
I seriously,
yeah.
I mean, and I'm being sarcastic, but it's not so far-fetched.
Yeah,
it really isn't.
You know what's funny? Here in the city of Chicago, I call it the David Axelrod question because it's like Axelrod frames it this way whenever he talks about his pals. Are they ready to lead from day one? You know, it's like, is this one mayor ready to lead? And so nobody ever seems to ask that question of a celebrity. You know, Donald John Trump never did anything remotely resembling being president of the United States. People in this country elected him. How do they know he was ready to lead from day one?
I don't think anybody's ready to lead from day one because you never know. Running for office is a lot different than sitting in the chair. Absolutely, 100%. If I thought I was ready to lead from day one, but it was a totally different can of worms when I got there. It's not the same animal. It isn't. And anybody says, I'm ready to lead from day one, you don't know what's coming at you. You don't know what balls and bullets are going to be coming. You have no clue. So you have to think quick on your feet. You have to make sure you do the right thing and make sure you keep your allegiances where they're supposed to be. And if I make sure that I do that all the time, I'll be fine. So,
Jake, what do you think? Oprah for president? Do you think she could win over members of the Chicago Federation of Labor?
I mean, I'm out of the prediction game after being wrong over and over again for about the last 5 years.
Because you're thinking politically.
But I will say, I mean, the trust issue is absolutely one of them, and I think that she checks that box right out of the gate. People know her, they trust her.
A lot of people like her, turn to her for advice. I mean, they turn to her for advice, what to do around the house, what to do with the kids. Thinking about them. Yeah, marriage. Kids. Why not? What to do with the country. I will say, you go through a presidential campaign, and that is going through the ringer. So if you want to get a sense of, test someone's mettle, see how they are on their feet, see how they are in crisis situations, maybe crisis situations they haven't seen on their own talk show, well, let's take a look and see how they go through the campaign. But look, we've got, 17, 18 candidates on the Democratic side who are stepping up. And why not? Let's throw, I'd say the more the merrier, and let's go through the campaign and see who comes out on top.
All right, very good. And finally, this point, we were talking about Donald Trump's appeal. The article right in front of me, Prez keeps up McCain attacks, claims credit for funeral.
Oh, God.
Donald Trump keeps lowering the bar on what's acceptable behavior, what people should tolerate from the president of the United States. And the bar keeps getting lower and lower, and his support in the Republican Party
is wavering.
Well, it's still pretty high, 83% according to this poll, Republicans in Illinois. Is there ever going to be accountability for Donald Trump?
No.
Ever?
No. I don't think there ever will be. If there hasn't been already, I think there never will be. I think it's a disgrace and a shame. Not a McCain fan. I don't agree with his politics. The guy was a prisoner of war, did what he did. In the end, he came out like a shining star. He really did. I mean, he handpicked Obama to speak at his funeral. He stood up and he voted against the repeal for Obamacare. He saw the light at the very end. Who knows? But this is shameful. On behalf, the President of the United States is shaming someone that doesn't deserve that. It's such a disrespectful thing to do. But, he's been disrespectful from the get-go. Yeah. Why would we expect anything different? The man is insane. Why aren't we starting impeachment processes on the fact that he is incapable of being a president? Come on. What the hell are they doing? If this was Obama, he'd already be in the impeachment process.
I completely agree with everything Sue Sadlowski Garza said, Jake.
The only time that there's going to be any accountability for Donald Trump, in my opinion, is going to be in November of 2020. And my hope is the people of this country are going to say enough is enough, and they're going to boot him out of there. I think 30% of this country is locked in, frozen, supports him no matter what. He could, do backflips down Michigan Avenue and he could do whatever he wanted, and they would support him. Maybe if he did backflips, he would like a little more. But what do you say? He was
trying to think of something really bad that he could do at a back.
He could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone, right? Yeah. So, but I think November 2020 is the accountability that he's going to get. But the thing to remember is, even if he gets blown out in November of 2020, the guy is going to be around for a while, and he's going to be a Republican kingmaker, and he's going to be a cudgel that hopefully people can use to differentiate themselves in politics.
All right, that's Jake Lewis from the Chicago Federation of Labor. Thank you for coming on. Also want to thank Alderwoman Sue Sadlowski Garza, the pride and joy of the 10th Ward-ish. Her right-hand man. The man is a beautiful keyboard player. We're going to bring him back to do some more songs. Leor Galil was here earlier today talking about the Lollapalooza lineup. Let's see, Miles Porter, our ace editor, was weighing in on his opinions on the Lollapalooza lineup. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend.
Wait, are we about to roll out?
Yes, sir, we are.
Well, not quite yet, sir, because we got to find out which movie.
Oh. After careful consideration and decision.
Well, let me lay it out here for everybody. It's our Nick Offerman ticket giveaway. What we did is we went to the Facebook and Twitter pages and asked all of you to give Ben a movie suggestion because he loves Netflix. And no, not the streaming. He does the thing from like early 2000s and has them delivered to him. What movie should Ben watch next? Yeah, it turns out he's seen like most of your guys' suggestions. But we've narrowed it down to two. Those two are the movie Brick from our Twitter friend Ant. What's going on, Ant? Gotta love Twitter. And P, one letter, P, she suggested Layer Cake. By the way, we're calling this segment Recommendations. So, Ben Joravsky, Ant or Layer Cake?
All right, I'm going to watch them both. But, Sue, I'm not ducking and dodging, okay? The first one I'm going to watch, the first one I'm going to order, Brick. I'm going with Brick. brick.
He's going brick.
Donald Craig, all right? I'm going with brick.
That means, Ant, you are the winner. Ant, I'm going to reach out to you. I hope you're a person and not an ant. And I'll get your contact info. Don't be creeped out. It's just me, Dennis.
All right, very good.
Oh, there's a brick.
There, brick house. Oh, mighty. Going to make. Oh, sorry. Anyway, Sue Sadlowski Garza. We live in the 70s, baby. Dr. D did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Thank you.
You guys killed it, man. You guys killed it. Garza in the house.
And hey, before we get out of here, everybody, we would like to remind you that the Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by unions. We'd like to thank the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and big thank you to the Chicago Federation of Labor.